I shouldn't say welcome back because it's not like we've just finished doing something and then come straight back.
No.
Welcome. That's all it should be.
Welcome. What episode is this one?
It's certainly well above number one, and I would say possibly. There's
and less than a million.
Yeah, that's correct. So it's somewhere in between. So I believe this is our third official one of pricking your bubble.
Pricking your bubble. Pricking the bubble.
Pricking a bubble. Find the bubble, give it a little prick. That's what
and
it is.
Again, just to remind people, the reason for that is because we all live in a bit of a bubble.
We do.
So we're just going to,
We're not attempting to change your mind. We're not attempting to. We're just discussing an issue, and
we are
not necessarily how we feel about it one way or the other, but more about. I think a lot of people have emotions attached to their views on things, and sometimes
most of us, in fact.
But yeah, well, the things we feel strongly about, but a lot of the time, that's not how other people see things. They don't have an emotional attachment to things, and that is what offends others. I think because someone can see well, you've never been treated that way, so how would you know? Well, that's true. That's fine. So anyway, having said all that, today.
So who are you again? You're Mike.
I'm Mike the Llama.
And just to introduce my auspicious self.
Yes.
Dr. Brant Raven.
Yes. Which university did you get your doctorate from again?
Oh,
there's a topic for another podcast.
Yes. Well, but Dr. Brant, that's who I am.
That's who you are.
I've got an opinion on most things, and here we are again.
That's what it's all about. Opinionated white boys talking about.
That's right.
About various topics.
And Mike, I've just put a pizza under your nose.
You have. It smells fantastic, I have to say.
You've recoiled.
I haven't recoiled, but I did.
But I am going to eat it if you don't take any.
Go for it. And I'll tell you why he thought I recoiled while he chews in the background. I hope that microphone's picking up your munchings. I informed him that I've actually recently, and by recently I mean probably 4 weeks, gone vegetarian. And yes, he did groan. He may have even rumbled his guts a little bit as he thought, more pizza for me. But it's something that I made a decision to do. I was a bit tired to begin with because, you're not quite sure how you replace protein and iron and all that sort of business. But, I'm sort of getting there. It's, you feel your way along. So no one else is doing it. The rest of the family's not doing it. It's just me. So I have to make some decisions and choices to eat the right food. Your eyes are slit. You're looking across.
So the topic today is related to your decision?
I guess it's the decision. Yeah, the decision on being a vegetarian. Now, as I said to you just before when you were waving the pizza under my flared nostrils, my decision. I'm not one of these militant feral people. I've only been freaking doing it for 4 weeks.
Right.
But I'm not one of these people who wants to push my agenda or my belief on anyone else. I'm not into that. The reason that I made the choice is because I got distressed and upset seeing the way animals have been treated. Now, I've always been, since I was in high school, I've always been a bird watcher. I like animals. We all like animals. They've been very tasty over the years. But
I've been a bird watcher too, Mike the Llama.
Well done. Nicely said. That's one of those... That's one of those topics that, there was someone posted a thing on Twitter recently where they said, name a job where someone always makes the same comment, it's like a teacher. I wish I only had to work until 3 p.m. in the afternoon. Oh, I wish I had all these holidays. You're working in the oven and so hot enough for, these ridiculous comments that people are like, And yes, you did the one for bird watching. I'm a bird watcher too. Wink. Anyway, so yes, bird watcher, animal
so now
watcher.
you're a vego.
So that's gone vegetarian, yes.
Right.
And so, and I'll tell you
which
what
I think is a bit festive, but anyway, we'll
we'll work around that.
We'll work around it. Keep going.
I'll tell you my reasoning. So my reasoning, and I started to tell you this before, and then we thought, let's turn the microphone on and we can discuss.
We did, right, and that's our topic for today.
That is correct. The reason
Mike's insanity.
So the reason I did it was before the recent Australian election. We have this thing called the Vote Compass, and you answer a bunch of questions, and it tells you where you think. Oh, as he tucks into another piece of. That's right. You can put down your answers, and it tells you what sort of political party you're mostly aligned with, and one of the questions was, how do you feel about live animal exports? Now, one of the ways farmers make money here is to, I was going to say package up, that's probably not correct, is to sell their stock to countries overseas. And a lot of these countries either have poor refrigeration, so you need to have a live animal. I understand that. Because you can't, there's no, what are you going to do? Oh, send me over a dead animal. Oh, it's rotten by the time I get it. So it just doesn't work that way. Or they have particular ways that they need animals to be killed for religious or cultural reasons. Something that doesn't sit well with me either.
Yep.
And I thought to myself, what?
They want the animal killed for purely irrational ideas. Yep. Go on. Keep going.
And I thought to myself, do I actually feel comfortable with live animal exports? No, I don't.
Right.
And so while thinking on this, I thought, what? It shouldn't actually be simply about I don't like the way they're going to kill that animal. It's I don't actually like the fact that they're killing an animal or treating it poorly in order to eat it. Now, there are lots of arguments. People have given me these arguments before. But what if I raise the lamb myself and I give it a good life? That's fine. You're still then going to kill it before it's ready to be. If you're prepared to look after that lamb while it becomes a sheep, grows up, nurse it through old age so it has a good life, and Jimmy's dead out the back, let's eat him, go for it. Do your best. I'm happy with that. That's okay. But you know what? If you tell me, this is the way I feel, if you tell me that you gave that lamb a good life and that somehow justifies you killing it in order to eat it, I'm going to say, well, I don't agree. Because you're killing something. Lots of my friends always have these conversations. What about the zombie apocalypse? What's going to happen? What role will you have in the zombie apocalypse? And I'll say, well, I'll kill the zombies because I'm not going to provide the food that people would eat because I couldn't kill an animal. And I know we're one step removed. You've made this pizza, but you're one step removed from the killing process here. You didn't have to kill anything to do that. But you might feel a little bit differently if when I turned up here and said, I'd love a pizza, you said, hold on, there's a lamb out the back. Let me just chop it up. So we live in a protected world into that to that sort of level.
We live in a bubble.
We live in our bubble. It's a bubble where we are no longer responsible for our own food. It comes in a package.
It's quite interesting actually because
you talk while I have a little drink.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because we know what our podcast is called, and you are sitting here pricking my bubble. Look, what you're saying is right. I'm a meat eater. I don't necessarily sit there and, crave the stuff all the time, and I'm not everything that I eat is meat all the time, but I eat meat. Do I want to see animals harmed in any way? No, I don't. I'm not a ghastly person. I would prefer that our animal friends were left to whatever
frolic through the paddocks,
to whatever devices they are left to, and that's wonderful. But there's a couple of realities. There's really a couple of realities that need to be faced. Firstly, your initial premise of I don't want to see live exports overseas has got very little to do with you giving up meat.
Oh no, it was. I guess it was just the catalyst that got me thinking further and deeper about how little I actually followed up on my own concerns.
Right. So you giving up meat is not going to stop people doing
No,
the live
that's right.
exports,
It's
And
in
I don't
fact it
think
has
that-
zero impact.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think that's your intention
No,
anyway,
no.
right? I get it. It's just a catalyst.
Yeah.
Secondly, there's a whole bunch of evidence to show that we only have the brains that we do have, for rightly or wrongly, because we're meat eaters, right? If we didn't eat meat, our brains would be not as developed. There's a lot of
Some would argue.
that they're not developed.
Let's
Yes,
go.
some would argue that, and it would probably be a good argument. But that's what I'm trying to say. There's an argument that says that, and there's some good evidence to show that that's probably the case. So the fact that we're eating meat has got to do with the fact that we are even able to ponder
About not eating meat.
about not eating meat.
But I had nothing to do with that.
How do you mean?
Well, that's happened irrespective of anything I've done.
Right.
So
Okay.
So it's a product of my ancestors. Whether some of them be in the tree still or not, I didn't have any. I didn't have a role. I didn't play a role in my brain getting to where it was, or at least an ability to.
Your brain is what it is because of evolutionary
Yeah,
processes, of course.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that
And I have bred prior to giving up meat. So the issue that you're concerning about, whether the brains of future mics may be not as developed, as they may not evolve the same way.
No, that's
I've bred already, so that's not a problem.
that's not necessarily the concern that I would have. In fact, I don't have any particular concern. I would say, if you've given it up, that's great. It's great that you're not forcing your belief or your giving up of meat on me or anyone else.
Purely a personal.
Right? I think that's great. I'm sure you don't devalue another person
No.
just simply because they eat meat. As a
I
lot
think it
of
would be a bit rich for 40-something years for me to eat it and then go off it and say, you're scum.
yeah,
That's just not
which
the
you
way it
find
works.
in a lot of militant vegans these days, right?
yeah.
Right? So, there's a whole, like I said, there's that evidence that I talked about, but then there's also a bunch of practical things as well. I mean, if you've got animals, presumably you are choosing not to kill these animals at all or treat them inhumanely for their meat product or any other product. But then these animals are going to grow and breed, and
Are they?
Well, of course they are. I mean, if you've got, of course they are. Take one of the most prevalent pests in Australia, kangaroo.
I was going to go politicians.
Right. Well,
That's-
yes, but I'm not interested in making roast politician.
Well,
But anyway, I'm saying, as we know,
yes, kangaroos, yes.
For those of you that don't know, that might be listening in other countries, Australia is the home of the kangaroo marsupial, and it is considered to be a pest in lots of places in Australia.
Some areas, particularly farming areas, I would say.
Because they basically eat the entire land, and they breed prevalently. So
Sounds like an awesome lifestyle.
yeah.
That's right.
It's like the wombat. Eats roots
Eats
and
roots and leaves.
Yeah.
Very good.
Anyway, but the point is, if you took an edict today and said, right, we're not going to kill kangaroos, right? And for those again that may not know, kangaroos are routinely shot as part of an extermination program in Australia, and their meat is eaten and it is exported.
Extermination or pest control?
Well, pest control.
Yeah.
Well, whatever you want to call it.
Extermination sounds like you're trying to get rid of all of them.
Arose by any other name.
Yes,
right?
all right.
So they are. My point is they're killed and their meat is taken. The meat is eaten. I've eaten kangaroo meat. It is delicious.
I have too.
It is absolutely delicious. Very low in fat. Very high in protein. Tastes wonderful when done properly. Now, if you're taking a position, I am not going to kill any more roos. I'm not going to harm these creatures, and I'm not going to kill these creatures. Well, you're going to be overgrown with them. What are you going to do now?
Well, I don't think a kangaroo lives where I live.
No,
It's
they
not.
don't.
It's not because people have been
but
killing them.
No, but they don't. I'm not saying that. Unlike what a lot of people believe, you don't walk down the middle of the city and see kangaroos.
I ride one to work every
right?
morning.
You don't. But you still will find them a lot in rural areas, and even if you say that you're not going to be overrun by them now. If they're constantly breeding, don't you think that they're going to put pressure on rural areas and also
But what aspect of the rural? It's one of those words that's frustrating. Of the country areas, are you thinking they're putting pressure on? Is it the farming?
Well, they'll certainly put pressure on farming, but they'll also put pressure on in terms of occupancy. You will be walking down a country town and suddenly a roo will jump out.
No, I think.
And eventually, given the right span of time, you'll be walking down Collins Street in Melbourne and bang, a roo's going to jump out.
The biggest thing that gets rid of kangaroos from your area is urban sprawl.
Yeah.
And so I used to live in the north of Melbourne where there were kangaroos everywhere, but then the houses popped up and the kangaroos got pushed away.
Yes,
no one had to kill anyone.
I understand that, but you can't do that ad infinitum.
Well, no, that's true. Unlike breeding, which is what the kangaroos will be doing.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Yes, urban sprawl will push them out. And as you sprawl from different directions, they're going to be pushed into a smaller and a smaller pocket. But eventually, they're going to be. They're not going to go extinct by them being pushed into a smaller and smaller pocket.
So your argument or your position,
and then let me make a second point as well. Even if I'm not killing, and I'm taking kangaroos as the example, right? It could be any animal. If I'm not sitting there with a gun in my hands shooting these kangaroos, I've made that decision that that's not going to happen anymore, and we're not farming them, we're not going to eat their meat, whatever. I'm not doing that anymore, right? Well, couldn't I argue that urban sprawl is in fact doing it for me? So should I now no longer have urban sprawl? Should I now no longer develop houses in new areas so as to not impact kangaroos?
Well, I think
this is where you're going with endangered zones.
Well, no, you kind of said it in that you're not going to keep doing that. Like we'll start moving up more than we will moving out, because the rest of Australia, we'll use Australia as our example, just you can't live in it. There's lots of desert, there's lots of hilly area, whatever it is. You just can't live in all those areas. So you're pushing them out of areas close to towns, close to cities.
But there's lots of arguments that can be made. If I start moving up, am I now affecting the bird populations that might fly around?
Well, no, because it doesn't work that way. The birds don't go, I was flying here, but now there's a building. I've run into it. Holy crap. It doesn't work that way. Birds can fly around things.
I understand.
And they also live in trees or whatever it is.
I totally understand. That's not really the point. I get that unlike Daffy Duck slamming into a building, that's not what's going to happen. But as I build more buildings, as I sprawl up rather than out, and I may in fact in some cases do both. We're talking about Australia where I may not be able to sprawl out, but in other countries I can potentially sprawl out. Right. So as I'm sprawling up, I'm sprawling out. I'm now affecting the whole geomechanics of the earth. I'm changing temperature. I'm potentially
all this has happened already.
I'm affecting wind patterns, climate, which affects the population of animal life on the earth.
Given the contents of that drink, we might all be affecting wind patterns.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
So my point is, do I now stop all of this because of the extermination of creatures? Effectively, that's what you're talking about. I mean, you're really talking about two things. You're talking about the humane treatment of animals.
Well, the humane, okay.
Right, you're talking about the humane treatment of animals.
Yep.
And you're then talking about the killing of animals. And the two, there's an overlap, but they're different. I can kill an animal for food, for the purpose of food, or for the purpose of other products, and I can do so in a humane way. And I can also choose to, I can do so in a non-humane way. But I can also, what you seem to be saying is that no level of killing is humane. Or you're saying it's unnecessary.
Which I think it feels unnecessary. Look, I understand what you're saying. You can do a bolt to the head of some animal and they're dead.
Yes.
But you've still just killed an animal.
Yes. Yeah, no question.
That doesn't sit well with me.
No, the fact doesn't change. Right.
No, that's right. It doesn't sit well with me. And the argument is with all these things, could you do it if you needed, if you were hungry, or even if you're not hungry, I'm going to be hungry later down the track, but I need to prepare this cow. I have to kill it. I'm saying to you, I couldn't do that, and so therefore I think it's a bit hypocritical of me to say, well, someone else can do it because I don't feel comfortable.
No, and I get that, and I'm not saying.
That's the aspect of that part for me. So it's
could I do it? No, I don't know. Well, I don't know what I could do. I mean, I really don't know. I've never had to.
No, I've never had to either.
Right,
but
so
thinking about it makes me feel uncomfortable, and it doesn't fill me with joy. I just don't think I'm happy killing an animal, killing anything.
And no one, and I don't think it's a question of joy, but it's more a question of survival. And again,
But isn't that what a vegetarian is trying to prove to you, that you can actually survive without
with vegetables? Killing? Yeah. Look, I think again we spoke briefly on the health aspect of it, in that the body needs a certain level of protein to function,
and that's the bit I am currently working out.
Right.
What's going to give me the best? There's some really good food, but working out what's going to give me the best protein, what's going to give me the right levels of iron, and all that sort of business. But there are ways to work it out.
Right.
There are ways, so you can do it.
But then there's the survival aspect. There's the health and there's the survival aspect. And again, if you choose not to kill animals, and I'm not saying that we should go indiscriminately just kill animals.
No.
But if you choose and you say, well, we're not going to kill these animals, and we refuse to kill any animal, then you're putting yourself in a situation where you are refusing to be human. You are refusing to be develop. You're refusing to change the way that you live, or change the way you potentially need to live in order to survive on the planet. You have to do certain things on the planet to survive. Mm-hmm. One of those things is to clothe yourself, for example. Right? Now, these days we've got textile industries, so we don't need to kill an animal. But back in the day, of course, they had to kill animals to clothe themselves. Mm-hmm. We need to build buildings. And as I said, buildings are going to affect certain patterns on the earth, and that's going to affect animal populations. You will be killing animals indirectly. The fact that we are recording this podcast is killing an animal somewhere because we're using electricity, which is being generated by a system that is affecting another system that's killing animals. That's a reality. And so what do? Do we not do the podcast? Now I would say...
I'm not sure we'd be asking anyone that.
We'll leave that to our fans to decide. No. Right. But I mean, okay, the argument could be made. We don't need to do this podcast.
No, that's true.
Well, maybe we do. Maybe we've got fans that want to hear our voices. But no, let's be a little bit pragmatic. We don't need to do the podcast to survive.
No.
Right? We don't do the podcast, we don't survive. Of course, the $1 million contracts won't keep coming in anymore.
Yes.
No, and if you believe that, you'll believe anything. No. But we don't need to we don't need to do this to survive. But we do need to live live in a hut of some sort. We do need to have food. Even the growing of vegetables itself, the thing that you're going to eat to replace the meat itself will affect animals. Where do you draw the line?
So how if I
need
to eat a carrot, how is that going to affect
Well, I need to carve up the earth to plant more carrots.
All right.
So I can have more vegetables.
What if I'm growing it in my backyard?
Well, that's still carving up the earth, though.
Are we going for the Gaia theory now? Are we like I'm carving up the earth and the earth's going, my back?
No. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is we're taking up spaces on the earth that would otherwise be occupied by an animal.
Well, that's true. But look, I guess I come from the theory of, or the thought process of, there's often the wanky term about leaving a minimal footprint. And that's effectively what I'm trying to do. You can't eliminate, otherwise you just stick a gun to your head and say, right, done, I've solved part of the problem by not being here at all.
Right, so you're really...
So it can't...
You're not eliminating, you're minimising.
Yeah, I'm minimising because I quite like being alive.
Right.
So I'm not going to eliminate that aspect of things, even though I know in the end that's probably, if you're taking your argument, that's the best thing that can be done to stop having an impact on the earth.
Right. So you're saying my minimal situation is that I really, really don't need to eat meat.
Yep.
And so therefore I am now not going to participate in that activity.
The activity that bothers me the most
right.
is the harming and killing of the animals.
Right.
And so if I can not be involved in that you're quite happy to eat whatever it is, that's fine. I have no dramas with that. But personally,
yeah.
if I can reduce that impact.
But you
reduce
acknowledge that all the other things that you may do.
Yeah, they still have an impact,
Right.
but it's not. Nothing is going to hurt an animal as much as me killing it and eating it.
Yes.
And I think that would be, you can say, well, the polar ice caps are melting. What about all those penguins falling off into the ocean?
Look, but I take your point. It is an interesting one. It's an interesting point.
But I think people who go, and that's why I could never be vegan, for example, because that just takes things to such an extreme. And I understand, believe me, the thing that tipped me over the edge wasn't just doing that particular vote compass thing.
Right.
It was seeing what happens in a chicken farm.
Right.
And the way that they identify and what they do with the male chicks. And what they do, whether it's disturbing anyone else or not, because the females lay eggs.
Yes.
And the females have the biggest breasts and they're the best eating chickens.
Yes.
Which means, what do you do with the males? So they sex them, they work out what it is, and they put them on a conveyor belt towards a thing called a macerator. I watched the video of this, and this is if you go to the RSPCA website here, that's the Royal Society for Protection of Cruelty or Prevention of Cruelty to Animals here in Australia. It says that is the most effective, and it uses the term humane, the most humane way to get rid of it. It is effectively a mincing machine, and these things come into it, drop in, minced, gone. That's it. And I saw that and I thought, fuck, why am I involved in that process? Why am I supporting something that these chicks, it's a freaking chicken that's a few days old, not even days, it might even be a few hours old, and I can't use that, so I'm going to mince the shit out of it, and there it's gone. And because it happens quickly, I'm okay with it. No, I'm not okay with it. And that made me feel sick seeing it. All these fluffy little what is it? You take kids to the frickin' Royal Melbourne Show, and what do? Let's go to the hatchery section. Oh, look at all the baby chickens. No, we're going to fucking chop them all up. No, that didn't sit well with me at all.
Yeah.
Something that's cute and fluffy is one thing, but you shouldn't say, oh, it's cute and fluffy.
No, you're right.
Anyway, that was the thing that tipped me over the edge. And the problem I have with it is, this is the problem, and I'm still somewhat of a hypocrite in this. I still eat eggs. And yet this was what tipped me into saying, well, I'm not going to eat animals. Yet this is still this process that goes when they're identifying eggs.
I suspect you also still eat cheesecake and you still eat...
dairy products. Yeah. And I see what happens.
Cheesecake and all those other products have gelatin in them.
Yeah, that's right. There's nothing tastier than the hoof of a pig. And it's part of the problem again is you look at the dairy industry.
Yes.
It's not a nice thing. The whole thing is not a nice thing. They take the calves away from the cows. They've got to keep them perpetually. I'm pregnant. I better keep creating. But that's not normal. That's not the way things are. But you know what? I still know deep down that I still have to have some dairy products, just not as many, not as much. I'm minimizing my footprint. I'm minimizing my impact. I'm not going to go there and say, stop doing that. Because then you get labelled a nutcase. We recently had those vegan protesters about the place. I understand where they're coming from. I get what it is. What they believe is awesome. It's amazing. They don't want to hurt animals at all. But you can't really have everyone living that way because, as you just said, we'll all just fade away and like, oh my God, I feel sick all the time. There's a nutritional, there's a dietary aspect to it. I get all that. Plus, there's a choice. Let people have their choice on things like that. This is my choice. And I'll still have an egg every now and then. Not as many, because every time I go to the egg section in the supermarket, I think, oh, holy shit. These are the ones that made it through the process, and I'm going to eat it. But you know what? Its brother got chopped up in the other freaking mincing machine. Oh, my God. Seriously, you should watch it. It's very disturbing. So, yeah, I can't stop it. I can't convince other people to do it because you know what? That's not my job. That's for them to decide. No one convinced me by talking to me. Well, you should really become a vegetarian.
Well, I mean, yeah. And look, I guess you've become that way, and you've probably done it in the most wonderful way possible. did your research,
Yeah.
even if you didn't plan to do that, but then and made a decision for yourself.
And look, over the last, I'll say, how old am I now? 45. Over the last 30 years, maybe more, when I've met people who are vegetarian, the first thing I've always said is, "Oh, why are you vegetarian?" I said that to a guy once who was standing there smoking, and I really wanted him to say, "Oh, health reasons," but no, he didn't say that. So I thought, okay, that's all right. But I like to know why people reach their decisions about things, not so I can criticize them, because that would be an arrogant thing to do necessarily.
When I was
But I like knowing.
when I was doing my research, I had one of the colleagues that I had was an American, and he was a vegetarian. And
That would be even harder to do in America, I reckon.
and I had a good friend of mine, and he's still is Greek, and we all went out as a group, and we went to a souvlaki place,
Very tasty.
or as they might call it in the US, a gyro place, because I'm taking care of our US brothers here. So we went to a souvlaki place or a gyro place where they obviously serve a lot of meat in pita bread. And the American said to the guy, "Do you have any vegetarian souvlaki?"
How long was the laughter?
Yeah. I think it wasn't a laughter so much as the stare in utter disbelief. Anyway, they made him a souvlaki without the meat, with just a salad. And of course, my Greek friend, to compensate for the fact, ordered a souvlaki with double meat. So the universe was
Balanced
left in
out.
balance, remained balanced.
Very good.
So I found that amusing. That happened over 30 years ago. Unlike Mike the Llama, I won't tell you my age.
No, that's right.
Suffice to say, I'm younger
There's
than Mike.
not enough. Oh, really? Oh, excellent. Not enough fingers in the room, or toes, or anyway. Look, it is tricky, and I will say that once again, I'm not telling other people how they should do things. I'm just, I guess, discussing just the other side, and
No, look,
there's nothing worse than a reformed smoker or a reformed whatever it is. You know, I don't want to be one of those reformed vegetarian type people who, I used to eat meat, but now I know better.
I totally understand what you're saying, and you know, I'll respect your decision. That's not it's certainly not an issue for me. And you know, your reasons are your own. At least your reasons, in my opinion, are not silly reasons. You're basing them on what your belief is and what you've looked at, and I'm fine with that. I'm certainly not gonna stop eating meat, and
it is tasty.
I enjoy a good steak. I enjoy cooking a good chook.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't think I'll feel any bad for doing that. What I will say though is I completely agree with you and anyone that wants to ban live export of animals. I completely agree with you on that point.
I guess for me, for something like that, it's hard to accept that that's an okay thing to do when I don't respect the reason for it at the other end.
Well, that's what I was going to say. The reason I want to agree with banning live export of animals is because the reasons that they are alive, okay, refrigeration may be a reason.
Yeah, that's an issue.
But the main reason is religious.
Yeah.
Right? And I find that pretty much reprehensible. I don't find that religion is a good reason to do anything.
Again, another podcast. But yeah, I completely agree. And it was, you know, I really should stop watching videos. I've seen videos of the way they have to kill it, whether it's, you know, for you're a Muslim or a Jew or whatever it is, any of that sort of stuff. It doesn't matter. I'm an equal opportunity anti-religious person. I think they're all shite. And when you tell me that yours is better than someone else, I think yours is even more shite than the rest. So, but I see that and I think to myself, how arrogant that you think that just to please a god, just to please whatever it is, you have to kill something a certain way because that's the way God wants it. How utterly arrogant is that? I can take a life as long as God has told me the right way to do it.
Well, that's right. That's right. And this is where you start getting into things like the Euthyphro dilemma and you know the argument of that within religion. Don't ask me to spell Euthyphro because
I won't. I wouldn't even try to look it up and find out what
but
it is. Do
basically,
tell me what it is.
Well, the Euthyphro dilemma basically says, is something right because God says it's right, or is something right because it is right and God is just simply making the pronouncement? Right? And the assumption, of course...
Good luck anyone actually changing their view on anything based on that.
I'm not interested in changing people's view. I've had arguments with respect to science and religion and art and literature, and arguments about, what colour stone we should choose for our kitchen bench with my wife. And I'm not claiming that I should be right or that I am right in any of these arguments. And this podcast itself is, by its very nature, an argumentative type podcast. And I'm not sitting here that I'm saying that I'm right. That's why you're here. You're here to rein
Tell you that you're wrong.
Right. No. But what I will say is there's logic and there's facts. And those things, logic and facts, when presented in the right way, they are right. And they are incontroversial. And logic and facts do not give a shit about your feelings, nor should they.
And I do know that even in saying this, that argument can be put back on me. I've made my decision based on my feelings rather than logic or a fact.
Yes.
But I'm still sticking with my feeling.
Yes.
So.
Well, no, you're yes.
What's good for the goose can be.
Yes, I could take the argument and tell you that you're being irrational, but in a lot of ways you're not being irrational. And I'll tell you why you're not being irrational.
Tell me why.
Because you've seen a video on the screen.
Many videos.
Right. You've seen a video that you did not like. And you know that what was represented in the video is occurring. It is a fact.
Yeah.
You are not basing your decision on a belief. You're not basing your decision to not eat food, to not eat meat, on a belief. You're basing it on the facts that have been presented in this video.
Yeah.
And you have trusted the source of that video. So you've been rational. You've done your homework. You've been rational in your fact finding. And so, the fact that the meat may be good for your levels of health in terms of protein, the protein your body needs, the fact that will remain a fact. That's never going to change. And that fact doesn't give a shit about how you feel about these chickens.
Yeah.
It doesn't give a shit, right? That is a fact. The protein is good for you in whatever quantity.
Yeah.
But we also can't ignore the way that you feel about this video and the facts contained within.
So it was a different fact.
Yes.
Yeah.
So again, maybe there.
So it's not feelings versus fact; it's fact versus fact.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly correct. And what I'm saying is, I would have to declare your entire feeling structure as being irrational, and I don't.
You've done that before.
Well, yeah.
No.
I'm saying I would have to really look at you and say the way you're feeling is irrational, and this is here is a resource that you should be using. And you know what? I could probably do that in a lot of ways. I can do that, but and I think I'm right to actually make that declaration. I think I'm right to be able to say, here's a resource you've been given. I mean, if we were to believe that iron ore had feelings, if we were to have some crazy belief around iron ore, and looked at iron ore as being a living something or other or whatever, we didn't like our mining of iron ore because for environmental reasons, because we were somehow affecting the iron ore.
Yeah. Right?
It would be irrational to say, well, I'm no longer going to mine iron ore because it would be irrational.
I guess, look, part as I said to you at the start.
In this case, it's less irrational because we are presented with a whole bunch of facts. You're killing a living creature. You are a living creature. You don't want to die, and you are in many ways anthropomorphizing the living creature and saying it also doesn't want to die. But if I had to bet in some way, I bet you the living creature doesn't want to die.
Well, that's
right?
True. Yeah.
Whether it thinks that it doesn't want to die, or whether that's just its normal built-in natural response, survival. Then I would say it doesn't want to die. And so your feelings in this case, I wouldn't necessarily call them feelings. I would say they are more fact based. So I'm happy to say that there's rationality there.
I know, and yeah, as I said at the beginning, there's the hypocrisy for me was that I was eating meat, but I didn't like the killing.
Right.
So that was the hypocrisy I had to deal with.
Right.
And that then has, I guess, come down to now, all right, I'm not eating meat, but I know that I need the nutrients and all that sort of stuff from it. So it's like a different hypocrisy, because it's like, well, I'm going to keep doing this to myself, even though I know I would be better off doing it. But that's a hypocrisy I can live with, because it's only affecting me. And whereas the hypocrisy of allowing someone else to do my dirty work, effectively, killing an animal, wasn't something I could sit comfortably with any longer.
I mean, you could live a very healthy existence not eating meat.
I hope to do so.
Yes, you can. I can tell you for a fact that you can do that. I mean, you will have to replace protein with other things, and there are eggs.
There's
of course,
plenty of good things out there. I'm discovering a lot of good things.
Yeah,
so.
and there are, and so I did 6 weeks of fasting, and I did keto as well. And keto is obviously a bit different, because you need to eat protein. But I discovered a lot about protein, and discovered a lot of foods that did have protein. Yes, eggs, and yes, meat, and yes, fish, and all of that. But you can have, there's also lentils, and really keto shouldn't be quinoa.
Which is why I'm not doing that particular diet.
Quinoa as well.
Yeah. Look, I'm quite fond. I had some last night. I'm a bit fired up about trying to do different versions.
Love is a lot.
Yeah, but that's what I like doing it. So there's options out there, and I guess like with anything in life, there are plenty of options out there. Sometimes we just take the easiest option, or the one that inconveniences us the least. And I think, one of the ways we congratulate people for doing something is if they put a lot of effort into it, or they go to trouble of trying to do something. And I see, for me, I'll thank myself for putting the effort.
Congratulated for putting a lot of effort into my physique.
Yes, that's correct. Yes. Anyway, so I see it as more of a positive than a negative. And I guess that's what it is. I'd reached the tipping point in my other position where it was more of a negative than a positive.
No, look, it is what it is. I mean, that's a decision you've made, and you will take it to whatever extreme it will go to. And you may find it will last a year, you may find it will last a lifetime.
That's true.
So
I will say we will conclude.
But it's a pity though, because I
have a lovely steak in the fridge for me.
There is some pizza here that
it is a good-looking pizza, right? I have to say.
There is that, and I was going to offer you turducken, but unfortunately, it will have to remain.
No, I'm not interested in what you're stuffing inside something else. The conclusion I will come to with this is, if you are thinking of doing the vegetarian thing, and
are you telling me or our listeners?
anyone listening to this who might be. Have a look at some of these videos. It might tip you over the edge if you just needed that nudge. If you're not thinking about becoming a vegetarian, don't look at these videos. It will only cause you distress. Now, I was happy to be caused distress because it made me make a decision. But if you're not interested, he's now looking up pictures of turduckens. If you are not interested in becoming a vegetarian, for goodness sake, do not look up videos of anything to do with any of the stuff we've talked about, because it's only going to upset you, and it's going to leave you feeling like you're doing something wrong when you were quite comfortable with the position you're in. And I'm okay with you being in the position you're in. If you what's that French dish? The ortolan bunting. Yeah, bunting's a bird. I'm not sure about.
Yes, I don't think I'll tell you about the.
No, don't. I'm not so keen on them stuffing force feeding geese and
Well,
things
this is
and
one that
ducks
they
as well.
force feed. They blind purposefully to force feed, and
It's yeah.
it's
There's
a
a lot
small
of
bird.
there's a lot of very unpleasant ways that humans have found to treat animals in order for their own dining experience. And yeah,
In fact, to close off the podcast, I was going to talk about. The a turducken, which is what is a turducken, Mike?
so it's a duck stuffed inside is it a chicken stuffed inside a turkey, and then yeah, well, what a surprise! It's 3 meats in one. Yes, cooked up for your dining pleasure. I don't know. Look, I've again, as a bird watcher, I never ate duck, and the reason was I don't want to eat a duck because I watch them. I look at ducks. Stop licking. Everything I've said about meat, he's licked his lip. Even that chicken story from before, he was like,
Yum.
baby chickens. I can't wait to get my hands. So
No, but look, I don't know whether we have time for
I'm not sure we do.
the story of the ortolan bunting.
You can conclude with that story if you wish, as long as it's 30 seconds or less.
Basically, the ortolan bunting. Ortolan bunting is a small bird that flies to Africa or flies from Africa to France.
A poor decision, I would suggest,
Yes.
given the rest of this story.
It's basically caught up it's caught in nets, and what they do, they when they catch these, they keep them alive and they poke needles in the eyes to blind it.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking that it's nighttime, the bird then is fed figs, and it will basically keep eating figs. When it's eaten its fill, which is I don't know, a day's worth of food or whatever, they drown the bird in cognac. So its belly and lungs are filled with cognac, and then they roast them, and it's often eaten under a napkin. The bird is eaten under a napkin, and it says here the ortolan is eaten whole, with or without the head, as the consumer spits out large bones. The smaller bones are kept in the mouth, so that the gashing of the gums of the person mixes with the juices of the bird to enhance the eating experience. The traditional way a French gourmand eats an ortolan bunting is to cover their head and face with a large napkin or towel while consuming the bird. The purpose is debated, and the reason is to keep the aroma. One of the reasons that it's is to keep the aroma of the bird within the space of the person consuming it. But legend has it you've committed such a heinous act on this little creature that you're hiding your head from God.
Well, I think there's no better way to conclude this particular podcast than with that image in everyone's head.
Ortolan bunting.
Thank you, Dr. Brant Raven.
This is Dr. Raven signing off for this podcast. Very, very enjoyable discussion today, Michael Llama.
No worries. We shall do it again next time on a completely different topic, and hopefully we have, if not pricked your bubble, we've massaged it a little bit. See you
Well
next
done.
time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.